Hello, everyone. I'm back with our Karimu Talks. It's another episode of Karimu Talks, and I'm uh, hosting today Tupper. Tupper, how are you?
I'm
Thanks
great.
for your time.
I am wonderful, and so happy to be joining you this morning.
I'm super excited. In fact, I'm excited because I'm in France, and Tupper is in United States. Where do you live, Tupper? Tell a little bit about you.
I live in Sacramento, California. I was born down the road in a town called Stockton, but have lived in a number of other places in the United States. Came back to California and Sacramento in the middle 1980s, and have lived here ever since.
Fantastic, fantastic. And so I heard from a little bird that you were in our last volunteer trip this June 2024. But tell us a little bit how this happened, how you met Karimu, what happened that made you closer to this trip.
So there's a fun story here, I think. My daughter, Laura, who lives in the Santa Cruz area, was an employee at a private school where Don and Marianne taught back in, about 16, 17 years ago. And of course, as your listeners know, Don and Marianne are the founders of Karimu. Laura got to know them, became very intrigued by what they were setting up about it for the Karimu Foundation. It had just been formed, and she went on the very first trip that Don and Marianne took to Tanzania and Ayalagaya with a group of high school kids. Laura was only 27, 28 years old, but was a chaperone, and came back with amazing stories and pictures and enthusiasm for what Karimu was doing, what their aspirations were. And we met Don and Marianne over the course of the years, had been very small contributors to their efforts, certainly emotionally supported them. But earlier this year, Laura, who now lives and has two kids of her own and still lives in Santa Cruz, said, "Hey, I'm going back to Tanzania with Karimu. I'm going to go and I'm going to take Farley, who's her 12-year-old daughter. And do you want to go?" And I said in about 2 nanoseconds, "Absolutely, we're going." So we were able to take 3 generations of our family to Karimu, help them, support them, learn much more about them. And of course, I think having the perspective of Laura, who was there when Karimu was a very small, very modest organization with very modest goals and projects, to see what the organization has been able to accomplish was amazing. And I feel so privileged to have been able to participate in that. And we were the great talking point of having the 3 generations of our family in Ayalagaya.
That's fantastic. We will cover more. I want more details of this experience of 3 generations in this humanitarian mission. But I want to go back in time a little bit and ask you a very personal question. When your daughter approached you saying, "I'm going to Tanzania," back in 2008, you said, right? 2008.
Right.
What did you think about this message from her?
Well, I was very proud of her and very excited for her. I think it's fair to say she's one of 3 kids that my wife and I have raised, and I think we always try to give them the opportunity to pursue their own interests, their own adventures, be open-minded to the world and to other people's and other points of view. When I started my career, I was a newspaper reporter, it wasn't a very lucrative career, but it was certainly an interesting one. And a lot of our time around the dinner table was spent talking about the things that I was working on and what I was experiencing. And I think it opened up my kids' minds and brains to the world around them in a way that was very inquisitive. So I was excited and thrilled and proud of her to want to do that. And, obviously she was relatively young, but an adult. We had a lot of confidence that Don and Marianne were super responsible and very organized in how they had organized the trip. So I was nothing but super proud of her, and very, very excited to hear about the trip once she got back.
Fantastic, fantastic. And now that you had the opportunity to travel, did you feel safe in
Yeah.
Tanzania? Did you suffer any kind of, did you saw any dangerous situation? Because some volunteers, some people, sometimes they are afraid to go. Sometimes women are afraid to go by themselves in a mission like this. How did you feel with this support of Karimu? Did you feel safe? Did you think it was okay?
Absolutely, of course. I have enjoyed a fair amount of travel myself. I have a particular affection for trips that I call hiking trips, where I'll travel to some place and we hike from hotel to hotel, make it a bit more rigorous. Partly what I like about that is, even in the areas of the world that I've traveled, which are frequently based or start in tourist destinations, this kind of travel gets you immediately out into the surrounding countryside, out into smaller towns that are not very well visited. So yes, I felt completely safe. I will say this, and I've had this conversation with Don and Marianne. It's an adjustment. It is not, it is I mean, despite my adventurousness, this was probably the most adventurous travel I've done, because there are no tourist facilities and infrastructure in Ayalagaya. You are very, very much immersed in a community that sees very few visitors, very few tourists, and you're quite a curiosity for a lot of, particularly for the kids. And that was, of course, I have to tell you, Farley at 12 years old was such a magnet for these kids that she had a group of young kids around her constantly. So I felt absolutely safe. I will say as well, I know that Karimu engaged the services of Greenlight Ventures for the first time on this trip, and I have nothing but wonderful things to say about Greenlight Venture. I mean, the organization, the thought and care that went into the facilities, the food, the transportation was excellent. I just felt embraced. I will add to, as I said, I was asked at the end, we were all asked at the end to fill out a survey. And one of the questions on the survey was, would you recommend this trip to your friends? And I said to them, I said, look, I have some friends I would recommend this trip to in an instant. I have some friends that I would not recommend this trip to. My friends that like to go to resorts and sit on the beach, I would not recommend this trip to. This trip was exciting, thrilling, immensely rewarding, but it's a bit of work. You got to be prepared to definitely get outside your comfort zone and be open to experiences that it may be not what you're used to. I'll say this too, and I don't mean to monopolize this. This was my first visit to the African continent. As much as I enjoy and continue to look forward to travel, I had always been reluctant to travel to sub-Saharan Africa, because I was always felt that I would be a little bit uncomfortable in the luxury bubble that so much international, and particularly it seemed like travel to Africa involved. And I don't know. I know that the economy of a lot of the countries, Tanzania is included, is very much dependent upon tourism and the kind of tours and travel that a lot of Western travelers experience. But I just didn't feel like that was something that I was interested in. And this gave me an opportunity that I felt to travel in a way that was at least providing some kind of genuine benefit to the communities that I was visiting, traveling in a way that would put me squarely into the communities that I was visiting. And boy, mission accomplished. I felt like we were very much immersed in, participant in the activities in the communities in that we visited. So I think if that is somebody that ever has a concern or a little apprehension about that, this is a great way to view a country very, very close at hand and very intimately with the communities that we were visiting.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tupper. It's not a tourist trip. It's a humanitarian mission, right? It's
Absolutely.
safe. The food is great. It's very good. We sleep in a very safe place. We have some comfort there. It's not a resort. It's not a hotel, a three-star hotel, but you have your bed. You have your mosquitoes net. You have to adapt with the toilet there, but it's not a tourist trip, right? You go there to help, you go there to serve the community, you go there to learn from them and to collaborate with them. So yeah, some people love it, some people I also will not recommend, but I'm absolutely sure that for those that are open-minded,
Right.
to live this experience, it's gorgeous, it's amazing, it's a game changer for sure.
I will say this as well. Probably the biggest and most pleasant surprise. So I live in Sacramento, California. Sacramento, California has very hot summers. When I was in Africa, we were suffering at home a blistering heat wave. I was amazed and pleasantly shocked that the weather, the terrain, the countryside in Ayalagaya, where we were staying, is gorgeous.
It's a beautiful place, right?
Yes, lush, beautiful. Well, the highlight of every day was getting up in the morning for our group breakfast, which starts very early, and, following Nelson's very detailed spreadsheet. But taking that hour and a half walk from the Institute to the Karimu headquarters in Dorada was such a great way to start the day, through that gorgeous valley and all those fields and past the cattle grazing, and then coming home in the evening the same route. It was just a great way to start and end wonderful days.
Yeah, I love that mountains, right? When we pass, see that mountains, it's absolutely beautiful. And I can imagine that you are a good hiker. You had a lot of fun in these walks.
Yeah, that was great.
So let's go back to the family side. So how was the experience of your granddaughter? How did she enjoy this? Again, did she like, or she was uncomfortable? How was it?
She is already working on us to go back next year. She wants to go back. She was blown away, and I got to tell you, for a 12-year-old kid, she was a trooper. I mean, she had a great experience. I think it met all of her expectations and exceeded her expectations, and she certainly was the star of the trip, just in her enthusiasm, her energy level, and I think it has supported and expanded what I fully expect to be a life of service. I think this is a young woman that is already has developed a curiosity, a consciousness about the world around her, a desire to engage in areas of her own life, at her school, in her community. She's constantly looking for for ways to get involved in projects to expand and support and improve her community. And I saw nothing but that perspective growing during this trip. She particularly, you know, one of the things that we did during this trip, and probably as a part of the past trips that you've been on, are working within the schools and doing. We took a whole bunch, hundreds of little puppets, and did these presentations in the elementary schools. And Farley was very much, Farley is my granddaughter. Farley was very much involved in that. And it was so wonderful to see that when we would leave, there would be 20, 30, 50 kids following Farley and calling her name and interacting with her. So it was heartwarming and absolutely affirming to see how she was able to embrace the mission, expand the mission. I think, frankly, grow the mission a little bit by getting involved. I know that Don and Marianne, having retired, are not taking the younger people over anymore. I appreciate that, you know, taking a group of high school kids there would be a handful to manage. But Farley's experience, and Laura's as well, you know, when Laura first visited and attended the trip in 2008, the project that they worked on was replacing dirt floors. And a lot of the classrooms there, of course, are very rudimentary. The floors are dirt in the buildings. They don't have windows or doors on the buildings. They have roofs that keep out most of the rain in the rain. And their project was to pour a concrete floor in one of the classrooms. That was at Ufani School, I think. Right, Ufani. And they literally, these kids were passing bowls of concrete one to the other and dumping it into the floor. And to go back today and see Ufani School, which is this beautiful school, they were just completing a brand new kitchen to provide lunches for the kids. She couldn't recognize the school. She kind of had a basic idea, but the place has become so gorgeous and is so much better from a standpoint of the infrastructure and the facilities to provide the education there, that Laura was blown away. Marianne was very excited to have some pictures and do some interviews with us to provide that contrast. So I think between Laura and I'm a spectator here, right? I'm just the beneficiary of getting to see this fabulous experience that Laura's been able and her daughter were able to experience. Was my reward.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So one thing that is very valuable, we have an amazing network of donors, and of course we need more donors, right? And one thing that Karimu does very well is to really apply the capital, invest the money to make transformation. And also we always invite these donors and volunteers to go there and see with their own eyes the impact in the community, right? So I can't wait. I didn't see yet the videos of Laura, because Marianne probably shot a video of driving in Funny, right? And
yes, several videos.
Super curious to see the impact on her, saying, what's going on here? It's a different place. Like when I saw the before and after pictures and videos, I say, this is a miracle. What happened here in this place is a miracle. I'm looking at a miracle when I was there, and I'm super curious to see Laura reaction. I'll look for these videos, and then we will publish in our social networks to see the impact.
Well, you know, I want to follow up on that, Edu. I have to say, you know, I've always tried to keep a portion of my resources available and make contributions to my own network of organizations that I support. And what was so obvious to me, and I think it's very much part of the Karimu story when you listen to Don and Marianne talk about how they first got involved, is how far a little bit of money can go in a community when it's well managed and very targeted and very focused. Because, I know you know this, but Karimu has pretty much felt it's met its objectives in Ayalagaya and is now expanding its focus into this neighboring ward or province, Ari. And so much of the trip, whether by design or accident, allowed us to see the contrast between Ayalagaya, where Karimu has been so effective at marshaling, limited resources into improvements, and then in Ari, which is this much larger province, the differences are obvious and profound. And simple things. And of course, Nelson pointed all of this out to us when we're driving around in these communities. In Ayalagaya, most of the houses are now brick and have metal roofs. Seems like small things, right? In Ari, most of the houses are mud and have grass roofs. Well, that is a enormous difference for the well-being and the standard of living for the people in those communities. I mean, the houses don't wash away in the heavy rains. They don't leak water. The families can particularly with the, well, I'm rambling, but the water project to me is amazing.
It's unbelievable, right? So when you talk to people that they were impacted by the water project, for those that don't know the water project, when Karimu started working in these villages, the kids from 3 to 8 years old, they had to work in fetching water for their families, so they didn't have time to go to school. And sometimes these kids, they walk for 6 or maybe more hours a day,
Right.
To find this water, to bring this water, and dirty water, right? So and Karimu working with the community, asking the community about what do you need first, what is your priority, and the community said we need water. Karimu built a engineering project to bring water from the mountains. There is water in the environment, but there is no distribution of water, right? And then we work together with the community. The community dig the on the ground, and the Karimu engineers, they built the water points of concretes and faucets, and now we have more than 300 water points where kids, they walk max 500 yards,
Right.
to, to get clean water. So this is absolutely mind-blowing, right?
It is mind-blowing, because to see it, to be able to drive around these communities and see these water points. And I love the story that Nelson told as well, that the day that the project started, which started very, high up in the mountains and not an easy walk to get to the source of the water, 1,000 people showed up to begin digging. And I said, well, you must have had trenching, heavy equipment to trench all of this. Nope. All done by hand, all done by volunteers. It is mind-blowing. Again, I think it just shows you what a little bit, when it's well managed and focused, can have the profound impact it can have on communities. Is just amazing.
Very good. And Tupper, what do you think are the next big challenges for Karimu? So you mentioned very well the impact we had in Ayalagaya,
right?
Closing the cycle of development of Ayalagaya. Now everything Karimu does is self-sustainable. So now Ayalagaya has all the infrastructure to start to keep developing themselves by themselves. And now we need to develop Ari. That is, just for you to understand the differences, Ayalagaya 15,000 people, Ari 25,000 people. So it's a much larger ward. So what do you think are the next challenges for Karimu? And another question is how people could help on this mission?
I think, well, look, I am a volunteer that spent 2 weeks there and have limited, I mean, obviously I'm a huge fan, a huge believer. I think Karimu has is led by remarkably well and brilliant people, to be honest with you. It's amazing. So I don't want to pretend that I have any insights there. I think, I do know that because part of our assignments as helpers and our jobs was to go and do maintenance checks at the facilities that Karimu has supported. And I came to appreciate and understand that in communities where buildings and infrastructure were often somewhat temporary, that were built out of mud perhaps and washed away in a big storm, the idea of maintaining and supporting maintenance for long-term sustenance wasn't really part of the culture, part of the lifestyle. And so I think Karimu is working very, very hard and with, making progress, but with setbacks to make sure that the facilities and the projects they do, number one, are self-sustaining. Number two, and by that being maintained in a way that ensures that they're going to be around long past Karimu, is a challenge for them. And I see that as something that Nelson and Don and Marianne work very hard to support. And so I don't want to, it seems to me that they're going to continue to have that focus in Ayalagaya, where they have had so much success. And then now moving into Ari, which is much bigger. I understand it's quite a bit larger just geographically. As you know, getting from community to community is not easy. If you don't walk, you're going to drive on some pretty rough roads, and it takes a lot of time. So I just think that they're going to have more challenges getting into the areas, not getting into them, but more challenges, managing that much larger geographic area. I mean, look, they're not, what I liked was they're very clear is, they have arrived at a place in the growth of Karimu where they're not taking small groups of volunteers and doing construction projects, right? They are engaging construction companies to build facilities, build them properly, build them in a way that they will be around for decades. And that takes money. So obviously the greatest need for Karimu to continue its mission is finances, money. It needs money. I mean, if you are a donor and you want to make your philanthropic dollars go as far as they possibly can, I hear this is an organization that's going to put them to good use, and it's going to 100% goes right into the communities that where Karimu is working. So I guess I'm being a little bit vague here. I don't want to speak for Karimu about their challenges. I think their challenges at Ari are scale, the diversity of the communities, or I guess the way they're spread out over a much larger area is going to be a challenge. I also see them already working with these local communities. I know one of the areas that it seems Karimu has been so successful is building that core relationship with the communities, with the people that are the genuine leaders, not the maybe not the titular leaders, but the real community leaders, working with them, learning from the community, where the needs are, and making sure that when projects are undertaken, they're undertaken with the full, not only support of the community, but with full understanding of what the community's role is going to be going forward to make sure those projects are sustainable. I see that what the focus seems to be now, or much of the focus seems to be establishing those same networks in Ari, in the communities in Ari, and building that core foundation to then start building out and developing the educational, the health facilities that have been they've been so successful developing in Ayalagaya. Excuse me.
Very good, Tupper. Yeah, when I asked Nelson, after I understood the methodology and the success in Ayalagaya, I asked Nelson, what do you need to scale this? And he said, I need money and volunteers.
Right.
I need more volunteers to come here and see with their own eyes and evangelize other people to keep engaging with us and helping us. And we need more donors. We need more money, as you said, Tupper. Very important, because we know how to apply the capital there. So these are the message that I heard from Nelson, our COO. Okay, Tupper, we are almost finishing here our conversation. So I want you to send a message to people from your network or people that are watching us. What is your final message to these people that are watching us and they are curious to know more about Karimu?
Sign up and go to Tanzania and visit these communities. Honestly, if you have any interest in helping people and learning about cultures that, we all learn from travel. What does Mark Twain say? Travel is the great antidote to intolerance. But to just be able to experience communities that are so vibrant, so the potential is so amazing, and do it in a way that is, as you said, Edu, it's safe, it's pleasant, and I can't recommend that enough. And then, if you have a list of charities and organizations that you support, your concern is making sure that your philanthropic dollars are being put to good use. I think this is an area that the money is exceptionally well targeted and applied in areas that may, as I've said a number of times, make a profound impact on the lives of the people in those communities.
Fantastic. Tupper, I want to thank you very much for your time, for your generosity, for you spending time traveling to Tanzania, working with our volunteers there, working with the community there. And thanks again for giving your testimonial on how is the work of our entity. It's extremely important to have volunteers like you helping us. I want to invite all of you to visit our YouTube channel, to subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more interviews with more volunteers. I also want to invite you to follow us on Instagram and check our website for news and more projects and more trips that we are doing. In 2025, there will be more trips. Tupper had the privilege to travel with his granddaughter. So we have a family trip that we're planning to bring kids from 8, 9 years old to 15, 16 years old with their parents. So, and also we, of course, every year we have our volunteer trip with adults that will help us to collaborate with the community there. Thank you very much, Tupper.
You're welcome. Thank you.
See you in Tanzania in the next years. This year I was not in the volunteer trip, but next year I'm confirmed, so I'll be there. I hope to see you.
Well, I hope to see you too. I am already looking forward to figuring out how I'm going to pull this off and get back to Tanzania, because it was an amazing experience, and I'm really excited to be part of Karimu going forward.
Fantastic. So see you in the next Karimu Talks. Thank you for watching.